On May 25, 1978, Professor Buckley Christ found a package in his office at Northwestern University. His first instinct was to call campus security. The package, which had been found in the university parking lot, was marked with his return address, but Chris couldn't remember sending it. When Officer Terry Marker opened the lid on the package, a rubber band snapped back and struck 6 match heads, igniting a fire that triggered the first device of the Unabomber's 17-year campaign of terror. The bomb was crudely constructed and left Marker with only minor cuts and bruises. The Unabomber, until he was caught in 1996, would kill 3 people and maim several others with increasingly sophisticated devices. The Unabomber was identified as Theodore Kaczynski, a mathematics prodigy. Kaczynski's goal was to disrupt modern society in order to bring about a return to a more primitive, environmentally conscious way of life. This story is about the pursuit of the Unabomber by an investigator who saw mathematical sequences in those crimes. As a former military codebreaker, here's his intriguing story.
One of the bombs had 10 Eugene O'Neill stamps. Gil Murray package had a Eugene O'Neill stamp on it. And I had determined that basically because he wrote the drama, The Iceman Cometh, which, if you read the book, which I did, that the Iceman was death. The Iceman Cometh was death, or the Grim Reaper. Yeah, I had my local newspaper, the Appeal Democrat, up in Yuba City, California, where I live. They did a chronological listing of all of the Unabomber's bombs from 1978 to date, and the last one would have been in December '94, which was Thomas Mosser out of Caldwell, New Jersey. So working up to it, I was previously involved with Air Force intelligence for like 6 years, from 1962 to between the years of 1962 and 1969, and I did a lot of coding, decoding, algorithms for coding and all of that. But when we get coded messages in, there were certain things that we would try to locate within the coded pages to see if we could identify the sender. Well, when the chronological listing came in the newspaper on December 10th, 1994, my local newspaper, it had everything chronologically listed, and I was able to pick off the pages certain things by the month that it happened, or the day that it happened, or the year that it happened, or the place that it happened, whether it was inside, outside, West Coast, East Coast, the day of the week of the year, the year of the bombing, certain things like that, and from that, what was jumping off the page at me, I initiated 16 charts, which then enabled me to make certain projections on the bomber before he completed his acts. J.P. Morgan, a special agent with Federal Protective Service out of Sacramento, called me about 4 o'clock in the afternoon of the bombing, and Gil Murray was bombed and killed on the 24th of April, I believe, 1995. Anyway, John called me about 4 p.m. that same day and asked me if I wanted to get involved with him in the Sacramento PD Homicide Division, and I accepted. And on April 25th, the very next morning at 8 o'clock, we met up at the Sacramento PD, and with Sac PD Detective Lieutenant Joe Enlow and his associate and partner Jeff Gardner, and we started working together, JP, myself, Detective Enlow, and Detective Gardner, and that was the beginning of my official involvement. The day after the Gilmurray bombing, we were all together at the PD, Hartman, JP, and Enlow and Garner. And then in May, about the 1st of May or the first week in May, Lieutenant Enlow, his partner from Sac PD, Homicide Gardner, JP Morgan, and Hartman were up in Yuba City. In my city, they came up and we had a meeting at the Sutter County Library meeting room where I set up all my chartings and everything to show Lieutenant Enlow and Gardner how I was working this guy mathematically and everything. And from that point on, they were basically hooked with having me involved in it, just based on what we had discussed at that meeting, and that's how I stayed involved with SAC PD throughout the remainder of the time until he was caught. Yeah, I had determined myself specifically, and nobody else had, was that when he used the $1 Eugene O'Neill stamp, that the package that stamp was on was meant to kill the person that received it. And the people that had received, that had died from his prior bombings with mail bombs, but there was like, I think there was like 10 Eugene O'Neill stamps on the Gilmurray bomb, or maybe it was a prior bomb, but one of the bombs that killed a person had 10 Eugene O'Neill stamps. Gilmurray package had a Eugene O'Neill stamp on it, phonetically. And as far as stamp collections, you know, the date that it was published, and see if there was any coincidence between the date the stamp was published and the date of the bombings, or any historical value from the stamp, what it had, what the stamp was in reference to, whether it was a pioneer type stamp or a World War I stamp or World War II stamp, or whatever historically what it represented, and if it applied anything logically that wise to the bombings. So I did a lot of historical research, I did a lot of stamp research, I did a lot of, just reading materials, research. Dave Galertner's book, and this other professor that was bombed on the East Coast with fractal, mathematics and all kinds of stuff. I read probably 24 books within a couple of months, just to get to see if it fit in logically or sequentially with whatever I was doing. So I did a ton of research. The FBI had asked me to look into the writings on a lot of different things throughout the year that I was involved with it, to see if anything jumped off pages at me, including parts of the old Patty Hearst case. They sent me a whole bunch of paperwork on the Patty Hearst case to look at, to determine if there was anything within any of the telephone numbers specifically where they were numbers, for me to see if I could pick out things numerically that they had missed. But there was a lot of things that were going on, but linguistically they had been working on it, and the FBI had notified me, the senior agent at the time had notified me that they were basically looking at the writings. They had nobody really looking at anything mathematically. the only thing that was missed that was the logic as applies to mathematic portion of it. If somebody from the FBI or elsewhere had picked up on that earlier, they might have been able to catch him earlier and might have been able to save a few lives. I was very satisfied with what I did and my conclusions that I came to, although they seem very unorthodox to a lot of people. I mean, that's just the way I am. I'm a little bit odd, so I mean, you know, I don't see things as other people see them, and that's just. Everything must be in balance and thus divisible by 2. And number 2 is the key.
So that, with your experience, that's how you put all this together?
Yeah, basically, you know, in life, everything, what goes around comes around. That's strange loop theory, and that's ad infinitum. And in two-ness, everything in life has to be in balance. There's an up, there's a down, there's an on, there's an off, there's a yin, there's a yang, you know, all that kind of stuff. And that is basically what mathematical two-ness is. And this guy, when I first started getting into this guy, I noticed that a lot of the rooms that he was bombing in the universities were all even numbers. The first bombing for the flight on the airlines was 444. It's all even numbers. So it was sticking in my mind. It was divisible by 2.